Welcome to the next installment of Opinions of Value, Valcre's very own virtual chat series. We're glad you could join us for today's episode. The series was created to encourage open and honest dialogue about the health and state of the commercial real estate industry through the lens of commercial appraisers. On Opinions of Value, we will explore everything from the trends shaping the commercial real estate market at large to the challenges impacting the way valuers conduct their jobs in this digital age. We're excited to dive into this month's episode with an amazing panel of guest speakers. Please welcome Desiree Flannery, MAI Manager, Property Tax Commercial at Ryan. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Lucas. Yes, I am a former fee appraiser turned property tax agent. I spent the first 14 years of my career actually valuing and consulting on hotels and lodging properties for HVS. And in 2020, I pivoted into the property tax appeal world and get to use my appraisal skills now for our clients at Ryan.
Amazing. Next up, we have Nancy Myers, MAI, Vice President and Real Estate Review Lead at JPMorgan Chase & Company.
Hi, Lucas. Similar to Desiree, I started out my career and lived most of it inside the fee world until about a year ago now, where I pivoted, and now I work on the other side of the table from the fee appraisers on the review side for JPMorgan Chase.
Awesome. And our final guest, Sonia Singh, MAI, Director of Valuation Advisory Services at ConResnick.
Hi, Lucas. Thanks for having me as part of the panel today. I'm a director in ConResnick's Valuation Advisory Practice. We're a full-service valuation team providing real property appraisals, personal property appraisals, appraisals for complex financial instruments, minority interest appraisals, and then also business valuations. My primary focus is real property appraisals for litigation, so that includes for eminent domain, as well as for estate and gift tax planning and financial reporting. So that's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for joining. On this episode, we'll discuss an incredibly important topic for the industry at large, women in commercial real estate appraisal. And as we kickstart the new year, now is a great time to reflect on the progress being made in the real estate valuation and advisory industry to further diversify the appraisal profession and continue to expand women's presence in this field. The appraisal industry is made up of approximately 2/3 men and 1/3 women, with nominal change in this ratio in the past decade. Studies continue to reveal that the appraisal workforce is dominated by men, while women remain underrepresented, especially in leadership positions. For example, since 1991, the president of the Appraisal Institute position has been filled by 2 women, including Sarah Stevens in 2012 and Patricia Marshall in 1992. This equates to a 6% female leadership representation in the past 30 years for a position that turns over each year. Today, we're joined by 3 women appraisers, all of whom are indisputable leaders in the industry. And we'll be talking about their experience in the appraisal industry and what steps can be taken to bring more women into this profession. So let's kick it off with the first question here. Unlike a lot of other industries, there are a few direct paths into the appraisal industry. Share with us what led you to a career in the appraisal industry. And we'll kick this off with Nancy.
I think most of us have a circuitous route to this particular industry. I don't think anybody graduates from college and goes, I'm going to go be an appraiser. I know, there are obviously, particularly in the Midwest, University of Wisconsin at Madison is well known for their real estate program. And I'm sure there are other schools all over the country that have similar focus. But a lot of times you're coming out of that thinking you're going into the financial world. Or maybe architecture school or something like that. I was actually on my way to grad school. I needed a day job to support my night grad school work. And a friend of mine was working for a small appraisal company, and they were looking for somebody to come in and frankly be a paper pusher and and a dictaphone transcriber and all the other things that go with clerical work, essentially. And it sounded like a decent gig. And meeting the guys, the lead appraisers, who were all men at the company, they seemed open to the fact that it was going to be a day job for me. And I was interested in real estate, but really didn't know that much about it, frankly, because I came from a completely different discipline in undergrad. So, but it worked out well for me in that I had a mentor who took a particular interest in me, thought that I was underutilized. I expressed some interest and some acumen, I suppose, over time, just by osmosis, by, being there and seeing what they did and learning what they did and lending a hand wherever I could. And eventually that led to the formal education and the opportunity to actually take on the title of appraiser and continue to move up the ranks.
Awesome. And Sonia, what was your perspective?
Like a lot of others, I fell into the industry. I would say how I got in was really due to networking, and not just networking with people who are in the same industry, but people who might be, down the office and could be referrers of business. So I was brought on at CohnReznick as an entry-level consultant, and I was part of a team of 3, over 10 years ago. Now we're a team of 20. Of which 8 of us are designated members of the Appraisal Institute. And where I had come from, or what I had hoped to do, was become an actuary. So my background is in math, stats, and financial economics. So a little bit of overlap, with that latter subject, with what we do day to day as real estate appraisers. And that's what keeps me invested in real estate appraisal. It's every assignment's like a puzzle. I love solving problems. So it was a good parallel for me, or intersection.
And finally, Desiree.
I actually ended up in the appraisal world because of my love of hospitality and hotels. Post-college, I spent a couple years as a recruiter for a staffing firm. It was not a good fit for me. And at the time, HVS was hiring. They were looking for people that had some sort of hospitality background, which I did from my college working days. And you were going to immediately start training. They had a huge emphasis on appraisal training from the start and offered me the ability to travel around the United States. And those ticked all my boxes at the time. And that was the beginning of my appraisal career.
Awesome. Was there anything that drew you into the business that might encourage other women to be interested? Kind of sounds like everybody kind of fell into it, which is, by and large, by how a lot of, people fall into the appraisal industry.
I know for me, I loved that every day was different. You have the opportunity, whether in my way, I got to travel throughout the United States, getting to know different markets, but even locally, getting to meet and speak with a lot of different people, different companies with different priorities, and just really loved that I wasn't filling out spreadsheets all day on a computer. I got to talk to a lot of people, network quite a bit. It was that day-to-day different day-to-day outlook.
I think for me, one of the really key pieces of it was, even before COVID and before, sort of a transition to more flexible work arrangements, the appraisal industry seemed to kind of flow with your life and the way it evolved over time. I was single when I came in. I met my husband and got married, and it rolled with that. And I had a child, and it rolled with that. And it's self-guided to the extent that it really allows a person with some self-discipline. I think it does take that, but it's not one of those industries where it's punch a time card necessarily. Sometimes you're working all the time, but you're not punching that 9 to 5 more often than not, and that means that you can better balance your work-life priorities. I think, even if it means you're working well after the kids are in bed, you can still take off and make that 3 o'clock soccer game, right? So that was one of the key things that I still emphasize when I'm talking to other women now who are considering the industry, is that it just gives you a little more control.
And that's exactly what I'm living right now, having a kid about a year ago. I'm a first-time mom, so I'm glad that moving, into this post-pandemic type of world where we have more flexible work arrangements, being able to work virtually, I was able to be at home for the first year of her life and enjoy all those sweet moments, see her evolve. So that did require, waking up early, logging on at 5 o'clock, maybe, taking care of some administrative work before the day really got started, and working late at night. But, deadlines are the most important in our industry, because our piece, what we're delivering to our clients, is just part of a larger, a much larger project. And our clients don't have the flexibility to turn that piece in later. So as long as we hit the deadlines, we have flexibility of doing the work when we can get it done, whether it's in an office or at our home, or, all throughout the day.
Great. And what has been your experience as a woman in a predominantly male-dominated industry? What's that been like? Obviously you guys started at different times. Maybe Sonia, how did it start out for you?
When I started in my team of 3, I had 2 mentors, right? Each of them were my mentors. The first was my direct mentor, who was male, and our practice leader, who was female. And actually, she was his mentor too. So I had the benefit of learning from both of them at the same time. But having a female mentor, and one that was your biggest cheerleader, is really important in a male-dominated industry. She keeps me feeling empowered as a leader for our firm, for our clients, and in my career as a real estate appraiser. And sometimes there are points where I can feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. So having her to lean on, to hear those affirmations, that's really helped me in my personal and professional goals, because she understands the challenges. And it can be intimidating when you're in a room full of males, and those are, the other people that you are, trying to convince that you're a knowledgeable expert in your field. So just remembering that there are, people in your corner that support you in your goals. That's been really important for me.
Desiree, Nancy?
Yeah, I with HVS, we were already a very diverse company from the start. Definitely came from the leadership in the company. My direct manager at the time, Rod Clough, made an emphasis of that. So I never really felt it within the company culture at all, which quite honestly was a lot different from the recruiting world, which was also heavily male dominated. So it would be more with when I was outside traveling to site meetings or meeting with local economic development officials, or see Convention and Visitors Bureau people, that, sometimes my qualifications would be questioned, whether based on age or, being female, things of that nature. Industry conferences, especially ones heavily attended, by men, a lot of times being they would assume I was just a marketing person trying to get a sales lead, and, not realizing I'm an appraiser. We can talk the talk just as well as anybody else in the room. So things of that nature. But from a company standpoint, the majority of my time has always been at companies that are very supportive of women, and just a diverse work environment as well?
I think it's changed a lot over the years, and I think it's gotten better. There's probably still a ways to go, but I can remember when I first started, my boss would say, call so and so for some comps, because it was an age that predated really robust databases like we have now and online, resources that we have now. And I would literally get called sweetheart on the phone or sweetie. And it didn't hit me as hard then as it would now. And luckily, I don't get that anymore. I don't think any of us do, hopefully. I think imposter syndrome, though, is real. And obviously, since there aren't that many women at the top of our industry in those, top positions, there's something to be said for a continuing disparity. Although I will tell you from a personal standpoint, I think to some extent, for me, it was rooted in my decision that I had priorities in addition to my job. And I think it's still a little more acceptable societally that men will kind of put those other priorities aside and go mostly for the job for a period of their lives anyway. Maybe not the whole 30 years or something, but I think it's a little tougher for women to make that call when they give birth to the child. They want to be there to see those moments of growth and development. And maybe the pull's a little stronger. That's a gross generalization, I'm sure, because I know, Lucas, you have a young one, and I'm sure, again, it's a gross generalization, but I do think there's something to that footprint that, has come before us. And I think some of it is still there. So I think sometimes women aren't in the top jobs because we don't reach for them, either because of imposter syndrome and not being sure we really deserve it or can do it, or because we look at the time commitment and we say, you know what, I still want to see my kid's soccer game, or I still want to go on the field trip with my kid. And, sometimes they are exclusive choices.
It kind of leads us into our next question here. As you've advanced in your career, what obstacles have you personally had to overcome or witness of other women in your industry from their experience? And when you look at leadership in the appraisal industry, what are some factors that you're seeing that could really impact the underrepresentation of females in those leadership roles? And we'll kick it off to Desiree first.
I've seen it more than I felt it, partly because I don't have children, and so that's given me, some more flexibility, so to speak. But within that, I definitely think having to set boundaries and getting used to not always explaining yourself, I think, and again, this is a bit of a generalization as well, but women are sort of taught that we always have to justify what we're doing, and rarely do I hear men justifying their actions in any way, shape, or form. So getting used to setting a hard boundary and not providing an apology or explanation for it. It's something I continue to work on, to this day. And it's definitely gotten easier as I've gotten older and more confident. And also recognizing that the knowledge I have it's valuable, it's worth something. And I'm not going to drop everything in my personal life to answer your question because it's convenient for you. We need to find a time where it's convenient for everybody involved and respect those boundaries, men, and women both.
So I've had to do a lot of setting boundaries this year, whether that's with specific meetings and times and saying at the beginning of the meeting, like, hey, like I only got 30 minutes here, so let's try to make this as productive as possible. And also, like Desiree said, there's times when it's our own time and we can't be sitting on our phones or at our laptops answering emails. So I've removed Outlook or Microsoft Teams from my phones because I'm that time with my family is more valuable at those evening hours. So I try to keep both work and the personal life separate as much as I can. But then when work is work time, then it's more productive.
Yeah, I think we all have that in common. And I think, again, I think I, started a little bit earlier in the industry. And so it was an earlier time, and the construct continues to evolve and the paradigm continues to evolve. And I probably had a harder time early on setting boundaries because it wasn't as clear to me that there was support for that if I did it. But, with age comes wisdom, and with experience comes, a little less imposter syndrome, a little more confidence in my own power and, if you will, the righteousness of those choices, of those boundaries. And like you said, Desiree, I don't think men explain themselves nearly as much as we do. But I think that's part of our, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the genes or if it's in the programming as we're growing up, but I think we just do tend to rationalize and explain more.
Yeah. Sonia, you mentioned that one of your mentors was a female. Do you know of any steps, either within your organization or the industry at large, that are being taken to make the appraisal workforce more equitable and diverse? And within your organization or others, what are they doing to lower the barriers of entry for women, to encourage them to come and work at the fantastic companies you guys work for?
So over the past 6 years, our team, the larger firm, we're trying to be at the forefront of pay equity. And during the recruiting process, we stopped asking candidates, what the current salary was, even if it was allowed on a state-by-state basis. Because we want to make sure that when we are speaking with the hiring teams, that any decision that's being made when selecting possible candidates, it's not based off of the salary. That's not a factor when comparing candidates. That it's all down to the experience, right, and the competency of that candidate. The other thing too is during that recruitment process that we're making sure that we're weaving in different types of diversity representation and practices and initiatives, whether it's on campus, if it's an entry-level position trying to recruit at the college level, or when we're looking for experienced hires. We want to make sure that there's a diverse pipeline of individuals for these various positions we have open. But then not just that, not from the candidate pool itself, but also the panels of people that are interviewing these candidates want to make sure that they represent the diversity of the teams that they're being hired for. So if I could give you an example, my team is half women. Our practice leader is a woman, and her her boss is a woman. We've got 3 partners out of 5 in our evaluation team. So at least there's that within the organization and the team, that there is that representation of women being illustrated. And then to reduce the barriers of entry, we are offering a leadership program to women. We also recently enhanced paid parental leave. There's mental health resources, and then options to assist with healthcare and childcare programs. And then we already talked about having a flexible work schedule. So I think all of that really helps position women in the best light to be candidates for these available roles as commercial real estate appraisers. And not only attracting talent, but helping to retain talent too.
We'll definitely get into retaining talent as well. Nancy, you're at a much larger organization, maybe the largest bank in the US here. What's your experience like there?
Well, I think that diversity is always a key element for the big financial institutions, mine included. We're very focused on DEI at this time, and that extends not just to women, but to all natures of diversity, including disability inclusion and all of those factors. So, and I think really there are, in my experience thus far, and I've only been with this firm for the last year or so, there really is no barrier to women at the large financial institution and in the appraisal field, in the appraisal services group that I work within. I think there are a few barriers on the fee side as well, with which I had a lot more familiarity and a lot more years. And as a managing director who was tasked with recruitment and hiring to a large extent for a national firm at one point, I really looked for women because I felt like the scales needed to be balanced. That didn't mean I ignored a gentleman who had an equal skill set or anything like that, but I really did want to see more women come in, and I think they were drawn to our particular format and firm because we did have several women in leadership positions, and I think that was attractive. I think they saw that as an opportunity, as a ladder, as a goal, and I think that helps a lot. To be that as it is, when you're a fee appraiser on the commercial appraisal side, I think the only barriers again would be, what your work-life balance needs to be, because it's sort of unforgiving in that regard, right? It's full on, and it's even if you're not 9 to 5, it's a pretty full week. It's a pretty full work week. And so if you're making time for family, sometimes that time comes off your sleep hours or it comes off, more movable opportunities with family or friends. And that's a sacrifice that I think we've all made on the fee side if we were in it. But I also think, it is a choice and it's a decision that everybody has to make for themselves. And how we attract more women to that role, I think, as Sonia had mentioned, I think if we strengthen our benefits packages, if we strengthen our flexibility in our work arrangements, and we give a little more power back to women so that they can make those choices successfully and not feel like they have lost their traction in terms of advancement or mobility, and can employ those life skills rather to how they manage themselves and perhaps manage employees under their tutelage or their oversight, I think the industry will be better off overall.
For me, from the beginning, pretty early on, I got involved with the CRE network, which is more general to commercial real estate, but it's been an invaluable resource for me. And I think companies should absolutely support both men and women to be involved in, national associations, whether it's CRE network that focuses on women specifically, or some other national associations such as the Mortgage Bankers Association. They now have their Empower program. The American Hotel and Lodging Association now has their Ford program. And I think when companies are encouraging their employees to be involved at the national level with those types of associations, it just helps to synergize and make it an important topic at the company. And it really needs to be from the top down as well as from the bottom up, that we're getting just as much support as men get in the workplace.
I think it's definitely good to keep in mind all the different organizations that are out there that really help support the industry at large, and have definitely emphasis on bringing women into the industry. And kind of a follow-up question, are any of your companies doing anything to help with retention? You mentioned some of these other benefits that have been added, and do you think that's helping to fulfill some of those retention goals for companies? Or is there anything else that's being done? Or are they paying for dues for these other organizations that helps?
I know Ryan supports me and my association with CRE, and they have, as did HVS as well for many years when I was with them. I think, and Ryan has its own program. It's called Ryan Mosaic, with a focus on diversity and inclusion. 2021, they put out their first benchmark study that they plan on putting out annually, to measure how they are against their industry as a whole, because Ryan encompasses all of the tax world, much broader than just commercial real estate. And so they're holding themselves accountable to make sure that they're doing, and really the CEO wants to do better than the industry, not just be at the industry level, which, my team right now, I'm a team of 6 out of the Ryan Seattle office, and 5 of us are women. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think, my firm too, and again, I think COVID played a pretty big role, but more flexibility, both in the work day and in the workplace. A lot of hybrid work, a lot of remote work, which I think better balances work-life choices, and I think makes women and men feel more supported in their roles. And then JPMC, being a large firm, similar to Ryan, has a lot of DEI initiatives and some resources like a business resource group, or BRG, one of which is called Women on the Move, and it's for women by women. It lets men into the group as well as allies, but it's focused on promoting women, supporting their efforts in and out of the workplace. And I think those are important, particularly to people who are entering the industry, to see that that's already laid out in front of them. They don't have to build it from scratch. They've got some structure and some framework to come into.
And at Co-Investing too, we have a similar program called Women Can. So it's like an advocacy network that promotes the same things. Being a resource for women to collaborate with each other, have discussions, mentorship, provide resources for whatever they may need. But these organizations or these groups, it's not just about DEI, but it's also promoting a sense of belonging within the firm, and that's what really helps retain that talent. So looking to other firms that may not offer the same type of resource group, that's where they may be able to reduce their turnover costs and not having to replace that valuable talent, by offering these types of resources or improving benefits packages.
The feeling a sense of belonging is dramatically impacts people's well-being and happiness and roles, and it's great to see that more and more companies are taking that to heart and bringing it to the forefront. And you guys have all, mentioned DEI as, important in your firms. And, do you believe companies that are inclusive and understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion are more appealing to the next generation of talent? And what advice would you offer to other appraisal firms seeking to increase the appeal of a career in appraisal to women?
Absolutely. In terms of the next generation, I think with social media being the primary way we consume news these days, you have to be living under a rock to not be aware of what's going on. And, it's really nice to see. It seems that the younger generation is fed up. And I've, felt that way myself for quite a while, even though I'm not part of that generation. And it's great to see this generation, pushing for that and striving for more equity and a wide variety of other things. I don't know if this is the norm anymore because I worked for HVS for so long, but one of the things that gave me the confidence to go into that company and into the appraisal world was our training was paid for by the company. We had a base salary. We weren't 100% commission, which at that time, my understanding was most appraisal firms were in that 100% commission. And I think that's a big leap to take. And so, offering benefits, offering to be an employee and not a contract worker, again, supporting your workforce so that they can have a personal life.
Yeah, I think a salary position makes a lot of difference when, a woman who may have a lot of household, responsibilities or people to look after, that they may not be able to put in, all those hours just to make up for it with a fee split. So, I think that is one of those barriers, or what may lead, an individual to step away from the career.
I agree. And I think one of the things that the appraisal industry has not done a whole lot of up until recently, when AI, the Appraisal Institute, started with their mentorship program toward the designation. And I know that looks different for almost every trainee and mentor. But I think inside the firm itself, to have a mentorship, to pair people up, to give them an opportunity to learn from someone ahead of them, but along with that, not to steal Sonia's idea, but a lot of firms, especially on the fee side, I don't think the mentor in that relationship is adequately compensated for the time and energy they put into that trainee, into that mentorship. And depending on the situation, there may not be enough skin in the game from the company to make both parties feel like they're getting out of that relationship what they need. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a reformulation so that everybody makes a living wage and the mentor is invested in that mentee and is adequately compensated financially and otherwise for their efforts and their expertise, but the mentee isn't, just getting the crumbs on the ground behind the mentor. As a result, the mentee needs to have those same financial opportunities.
And it's definitely wise to keep that in mind and bring more people in the fold, because as appraisers, we're responsible for training the next generation of appraisers, right? I mean, it's a industry and profession where you've got to train those new people in the industry. How are you personally helping to create pathways and leadership for women in the industry? It sounds like you guys are all in various roles where you're in hiring positions and have the ability. Is there anything that you're doing personally to help create pathways for women? We'll kick it off with you, Nancy.
My current position, I'm really not in recruiting, although I can refer. So, through some other relationships, whether it's the AI or other associations like CRE, when I meet women who ask me questions about the industry and how did you get into it, and if I wanted to get in, what would I do? I think it's really having those resources available to hand off to a large extent. When it comes to all the state licensing criteria, sometimes it just gets really, really tedious. But having that website link, and just saying, look, let me have your email. I'll send you these links, and I'll send them the state, and I'll send them, the AI. And maybe I'll refer them to some people that I know on the fee side who are still hiring, or refer them up to HR inside my current firm if the review side of the business is what they're looking for. But the younger the person is, usually they're looking for that opportunity to make a lot of money for a lot of effort. It's part of the paradigm at that point in their lives. So usually that means fee side, because the reviewer side, really, there's not as much volatility in the compensation. It's much more steadfast, and that works for some people, but it's not always the first thing a new hire would want to hear. So I'm more often than not referring them out to the fee firms.
For myself, again, another plug for CRE. For the CRE Portland chapter that I'm currently involved in, I'm on their careers committee. And one of the things that we do is we host biannual events to high school students to teach them about careers in appraisal and commercial real estate. And we work with a local, it's called the Portland Workforce Alliance. And so, for example, for our fall event that we had in 2022, we had 13 students from 8 different area high schools spend half a day with us. It included a panel, some space planning activity, and just made it really fun and interactive. So that, because I think step one is teaching people about careers in commercial real estate, women, of course, being the emphasis, but really everybody. And, starting from that younger age, so that there's more opportunity to develop talent.
It's an amazing initiative, Desiree, and it certainly increases that exposure to the industry and increases that awareness. The easy way for me to make a direct impact and make sure that someone's benefiting from it is mentorship. So I've got 2 women who I'm working with. Every other week we have a training session where we can talk about what's going on in their work lives, personal lives, and how we can collaborate and thinking of ways they can incorporate maybe a different way of doing something to reach their personal or professional goals. And I find that to be really valuable for these ladies because they're learning firsthand knowledge. The other thing too is that I'm providing feedback to their supervisors, but making sure that feedback is based off of their contributions, and they're trying to eliminate any emotion from what that feedback may be. So it's concrete, right? It's all based off of the what's the word? The word is escaping me, but just based off of their performance, right? All based off of their performance. So I think that's important too, to be able to remove any unconscious gender bias when giving feedback.
Sorry, can I just, one other thing that just kind of keeps popping into my head about this conversation is I think companies as well that really embrace technology and efficiencies in appraisal work, or valuation work in my case, make such a huge difference, because on the fee appraisal side, it is churn and burn, and it's all about how quick you can get that product out. And so if your company is embracing technology to help support that so that you can turn those appraisals around quicker, you have so much more flexibility with being able to take on assignments that you want, especially once you're licensed and you have more autonomy with those choices. It's so much easier when you have a good system in place to be able to get those appraisals done quickly, but still very well done and USPAP compliant, of course. So just, something else as well that I think companies should be embracing technology to help with that.
It's definitely a good call out, and obviously I'm partial to technology. And Nancy or Sonia, anything to add on that front?
No, I absolutely agree with both Desiree and Sonia, but I do think, technology has definitely made a huge difference in the industry over the last, 10, 15 years. And I think it's only going to become exponentially more important, and certainly makes a difference in that work-life balance that women may be especially interested in when they're considering a career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly trying to find a more efficient way to do something, right? Because I want to free up my time for something else, or free up that time to do more training, right? So that someone else can learn what I already know how to do. So improving technology is certainly beneficial for that.
Yeah, it seems like the more technology that is adopted across the industry, it really helps to remove any sort of barriers of entry, right? All of the gated areas of the industry, whether it's data or tool sets, having those easily at your fingertips really allows for much easier and more efficient workflow. All right, well, as we come to the last question here, what advice would you give other women who'd like to enter the appraisal profession? Maybe Nancy, let's kick it off with you.
I would say 3 things. Find a mentor. Doesn't have to be another woman, but at least someone who's an ally and who will, help you navigate, and particularly the early parts of your career, and support you as you decide, I'm ready to fly alone, or pretty much ready to fly alone. Give me a little leash. Let me go. The second thing would be to be a mentor. Because when you take your skills and you translate them to someone else who's maybe a few steps behind you coming into the industry, you hone your skills more, for one thing. And for another, you start to build a network of people that will follow you the rest of your career and be with you for the rest of your career. And the third thing I would suggest, if, like me, you kind of like to have a tribe, like to have a community, and something like CRE is great. Something like even AI is great for that, except that, there's a big array of people. Those groups are usually fairly large. And one thing that I found that was really meaningful and helpful, and continues to be, is, more than 20 years ago, I met another woman in an appraisal conference, and we've never lived in the same town. We briefly worked for the same firm, but we have moved from firm to firm. We have lived in different towns and apart all our lives, and yet we have been the best of friends through both of our careers. And we took, our qualifying education for our designations together, and we studied for the comp together. And it just having that sort of allyship of another woman who has similar experiences, both in her career and in her private life, has really been beneficial. And to this day, now she's also on the review side of the equation, and so we'll hit a question, and it's just natural for me to pick up the phone and call her. It's natural for her to pick up the phone and call me to get feedback, a reality check, support, whatever it needs to be. So I would suggest all three of those: to have a mentor, be a mentor, and have a buddy, have an ally.
I think Nancy said it really well. Find a cheerleader who's invested in your success, who can bring you up. And the other thing is too, is that I think we all know this, that there's high turnover with folks who are getting ready for retirement. So there could be an opportunity for success for people who are entering this industry, and also longevity of that career. So it could be an opportunity if someone is weighing their options of being a commercial real estate appraiser.
I think as well, figuring out what you're passionate about within the appraisal field or commercial real estate field. For me, it started with hotels. They're still my passion, and thankfully Ryan lets me focus on those in the Northwest. But I also get to work on a wide variety of other property types now, which I never thought I would be interested in, but I have found quite satisfying. So I think there's also, what if you start out as a fee appraiser, as most of us do, you don't have to be there forever. And I'm now a tax agent. I know former appraisers who have become brokers, project managers for construction companies. Learning how to value real estate helps in so many other disciplines that, just giving it a chance and following what you find interesting, or litigation. And in Sonia's instance, that would terrify me. So impressive. I took those courses through the AI, and they were phenomenal courses. I'm so glad I took them, but that's a very special person. So just, really embracing what you love about it, and that's what, makes you want to continue to be in it for year after year, because the churn and burn does, can get old unless you really are enjoying the product that you're working on, or the service you're providing your clients.
Love it. Definitely the emphasis of embracing opportunities and embracing the challenges that come with those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Desiree, Nancy, and Sonia, for joining us and for your invaluable insights and observations into ways of getting more women and diversity into the industry. Until next time, I'm Lucas Roeder, and this has been Opinions of Value. Thank you.